Welcome to Zero Trust Journey, where Zero Trust practitioners and leaders share unfiltered stories, leaving the marketing fluff behind. This is not another vendor pitch. It's a nonprofit community project founded for the people navigating the real Zero Trust journey. The views expressed are personal opinions and do not represent any organization. This content is for educational use only.
Welcome back to the Zero Trust Journey podcast. Today's episode is special. We're diving into NIST Special Publication 1835. Yes, the real-world playbook for implementing Zero Trust. Victor, let's be real. When most people hear NIST Zero Trust Guide, they're expecting a pretty dense government document. But this one, it's a uniquely practical and practice-driven manual for the real world, explicitly designed to move beyond theory and demonstrate how ZTA can actually be implemented.
Right? Special Publication 1835 is not just theory. That's what we're used to it, documents coming out of NIST. But in this one, NIST, alongside 24 technology vendors, partners from Zscaler to Microsoft to Palo Alto and others, literally built 19 zero trust architectures in a lab and ran them against real world scenarios.
And that right there is the key difference. While NIST Special Publication 800-207 laid out the foundational what of Zero Trust architecture, this new publication, or the new version of this publication, I should say, provides the detailed how, and it explicitly bridges the gap between conceptual principles and real-world deployments by detailing the steps needed to recreate example solutions. Crucially, it transparently highlights where technical integrations are still challenging or have gaps, which offers a really realistic view of the implementation journey.
Exactly. One point that jumped out, even with top vendors, policy decision points, we call it PDPs, we're not really talking to each other. That's not a product flaw. It's an architectural wake-up call. So when I'm thinking about Zero Trust architecture, when I'm talking to the architects who are actually creating the architectures, this is one thing that no matter how fancy the product is, no matter how advanced and innovative the product is, this is something that within the architecture, the fabric and the DNA has to be weaved in.
100%. And it validates what Forrester pointed out last year, with 65% of security leaders saying that tool sprawl and a lack of integration hinders their Zero Trust efforts. This integration tax, if you will, is a major hurdle. You can literally have dozens of tools, but if they aren't configured effectively to share information and contribute to your unified policy decisions across your environment, then you're not really getting anywhere.
That's where I think centralized intelligence comes in. So NIST emphasizes the importance of integrating SIEM, SOAR, endpoint health, and behavioral analytics directly into the policy engine, not just for visibility, but for enforcement, enforcing the policy in real time. That is what the crux of Zero Trust is. We want to enforce the policy in real time, not reactive, not after the fact, but as soon as something changes within our fabric, we know right away and we can enforce the policy.
Yeah, and what's wild is that in many of the EIG crawl phase builds specifically designed for organizations leveraging existing ICAM and on-premise endpoint detection, a critical limitation emerged here. It was most systems could authenticate and verify the health of the requesting user and their device, but they consistently struggled with authenticating or the identity or verifying the health of the endpoint hosting the resource. That's a pretty significant missing foundation challenge for a full Zero Trust architecture.
Yeah, and I wrote an architecture diagram and posted something on my LinkedIn as well when it comes to EIG, Enhanced Identity Governance. So I really like the part in this document where NIST talk about crawl, walk, run. So a lot of the organizations, they're like, Zero Trust, maybe it's just too mature for me to even consider. Well, they actually broke it down. So you could go ahead and look at it in this way. If you had a sick laptop from reaching a healthy server, you could stop it, but not a compromised application, which is hosting sensitive data. Now that's a gap, and they call it out honestly, wide open.
Yes, they do. Let's talk a little about how this maps to broader trends. We've seen the rise of identity-first security, and it's noteworthy that NIST introduced the term Enhanced Identity Governance, or EIG, in this project. This model is essentially an identity-centric Zero Trust approach, leveraging robust identity, credential, and access management, or ICAM, and device security as the brain of the ZTA system, particularly in its crawl and run phases.
And I like the identity-first mindset, but NIST took it beyond identity. They took it further. They tested microsegmentation, software-defined policies, and full SASE deployments, combining vendors like AppKit, Zscaler, Lookout, Microsoft Entra, and even Chrome Enterprise Premium. I know a lot of the organizations, they always call out where we don't have a cohesive solution for Zero Trust. Well, this document actually gives you that, where you have different vendors actually looking at it, and they build architectures, they test it in the lab. This shows the Zero Trust deployments in different phases, from different angles, from different organizations, from different vendors. This covers it.
And they didn't just test connectivity either. They ran Mandiant's security validation tool to simulate real sophisticated attacks. It wasn't a passive assessment of capabilities. They actively measured how defenses responded to these simulated real-world threat activities, which is crucial for proving ZTA effectiveness.
Which is huge. I am a huge advocate when it comes to continuous validation. It's the future. I've always said it. When you are just looking at the vulnerabilities, comparing the CVEs, look, that's important as well. But at the same time, as former CISA's director Jen Easterly called it out, you can't secure what you don't continuously validate. Zero Trust isn't a checkbox, it's a loop. And continuous validation actually continuously provides that looking out for your organization, for your assets, for your device, for your risks, for your posture, and that loop continues.
Speaking of loops, let's break down for our audience the Zero Trust journey takeaways from the guide. My favorite, start with comprehensive discovery and inventory of your existing environment. Now, this addresses a key missing foundations challenge because you can't protect what you don't know you have. And that means identifying all hardware, software, applications, data, and services, both on-premise and in the cloud, as well as mapping those existing communication flows.
Mine is implement access policy based on the mission. That really flips the script. It's not about protecting everything equally. It's about aligning control to the value of the data. Risk-based thinking, we talked about in previous shows as well, that when you're considering Zero Trust architecture, the first thing to realize is what is the most important. We used to call it crown jewels back in the day. I think some of us still calls it, but going from the top to bottom, realizing the value of your assets. And if one thing trickles down, realizing the risk based on that one. That's what really important. And that's a key takeaway from my side.
And we spoke about complexity earlier. They didn't shy away from complexity. A significant finding in this was the pervasive issue of distributed policy management. Many of the builds indeed had multiple policy decision points or PDPs, each potentially enforcing their own policy with no shared awareness. Now, this fragmentation makes it challenging to maintain a comprehensive and consistent understanding of the overall ZTA policy, and it's really not sustainable at scale for effective Zero Trust implementation.
Exactly. We need to start treating Zero Trust as a distributed system, not a stack of point solutions. The goal is to reduce blast radius and increase control granularity, well, without killing user productivity.
Yeah, it's absolutely a maturity curve, and it reflects NIST's approach here with the crawl, walk, run strategy. The guide encourages an incremental approach or a journey approach. See what we did there? But you start by leveraging existing investments and foundational elements like robust identity, endpoint, and access logic. Then you monitor continuously and gradually scale into more advanced controls like app-level segmentation, real-time behavioral analytics, and eventually things like automated policy enforcement.
For anyone asking, where do I start? Well, this NIST guide answers that. Start where you are, use what you have, build incrementally, and validate constantly.
Yeah, well said. And if you're serious about Zero Trust, this guide is indispensable, in my opinion. It's the product of extensive public-private collaboration. It's been rigorously tested in a lab environment against common use cases, which means it offers practical, actionable guidance derived from hands-on experience, not just theoretical concepts. It's free, it's comprehensive, and it provides detailed technical information, including configurations, integrations, all without the marketing fluff.
And we'll link the guide in the show notes. Until then, remember, Zero Trust is not a destination, it's a journey. And that journey needs to be measured, validated, and built around how your business actually works.
Thanks, everyone, for another episode of Zero Trust Journey, and we will catch you next time.
That's a wrap on this Zero Trust journey. Now it's your turn. Step into the spotlight, share your story, and be part of the journey. Subscribe to Zero Trust Journey on LinkedIn for the latest news, events, and giveaways. Until next time.